Hello, I'm Robin Gibson, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so you get a notification of when we're releasing a new video. I'm sitting with Michael Porter again. Hello, Michael. How are you doing?
Robin.
So, Michael, we had some important inflation data last week, and I think probably also in America, and that's really causing movement in the markets. So maybe you can tell us what happened, what the news was, and how it's being received.
Sure. I think from our point of view, Robin, last week was inflation data. Previously inflation was running at 5.1% year on year. And it fell to 4.6% year on year. So this will be inflation for July. That's a significant drop, and it's very much in line with the sort of Reserve Bank's, halfway. The Reserve Bank's target is 3 to 6, so it's bang in line with the halfway level. Yeah. And importantly, also core inflation was also sort of below 4.5%. I think 4.4, 4.3%, and so really our inflationary pressures, Robin, are dissipating fast. Yes. We actually should get further inflation relief over the next couple of months with where the rand is and where oil prices are and things at the moment. So we should expect some of that to continue. And it really just cements the case for our own rate cuts coming up in September. But equally important, we know that the Reserve Bank never acts in isolation. Equally important is that there was some data out of the US last week, but Chairman Federal Powell was talking at a symposium called Jackson Hole on Friday, which is always a big indicator of monetary policy, and very much the Fed has turned to easing mode. Yeah. So their next meeting is in September.
They call that dovish, is that right?
Dovish, yes.
Dovish, okay.
Dovish. And their meeting is actually on the sort of the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and they will announce their rate decision on the Wednesday night. And the SARB's rate decision is actually on the Thursday. So it'll be their meeting is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they announce the rate decision on Thursday. So now in the US, it's really a question of whether the US cuts by 25 or 50 basis points. And I think, this is really a glass half full, glass half empty kind of scenario. If they cut by 25, you could interpret it that it's a cut, but they're not worried about the economy. Or you can say they're not doing enough. Yeah. If they cut by 50, you can equally say, they're quite worried about the economy, Yeah. So I don't know how the market's going to react, but obviously the start of the rate cutting cycle is an important milestone. But it should certainly give the SARB, I think if the US cuts by 50, there's a good chance that the SARB will cut by 50 basis points as well, because normally we have 25 basis point increments, but they actually hiked by 50 basis points in March last year to try and kind of get in front of inflation. It actually worked. Yeah. They were going up slowly, and then they were like, no, we need to nail it. Yes. And it was quite painful for people with debt, but it actually did work. So I think the rate cutting cycle globally has started. Yeah. It has started among some central banks, but it's going to gather momentum.
Yeah. So, Michael, can we just maybe explore this idea of how the markets will react? I mean, we often have it saying in our office and in the industry that says buy the rumor, sell the fact. So very often what happens is the market sort of prices in the expectation coming up and then almost softens afterwards. So that is a possibility that we could see, like the rand strength that we've had and a little bit of the market run in the property sector, that falls back a little bit as that's already been priced, or it might have priced it at 50 and it only gets 25. Those are the kind of things that do come into it.
Absolutely, Robin. I mean, I think the market can definitely get ahead of itself a little bit and price in a little bit too much. And, obviously with the decision will come a statement and give some insight into how long the rate cutting cycle might last, how aggressive they're going to be. So it's really comes down to, you got to get your thesaurus out and go through what does this word mean versus what does this word mean, and so I definitely think that there is the opportunity for markets to weaken. I mean, there's another, generally when you start cutting rates, Robin, it means that the economy is cooling, doesn't it? I mean, it's why we need to add some stimulus back into the economy. So generally you should interpret it that the economy is slowing. So, I mean, whether the Federal Reserve engineer the soft landing where inflation is cooled and the economy keeps on going, I think is very much in debate. And I think we've been saying for quite a long time that the US economy is slowing quite quickly. I think these high debt levels are really taking their toll on people and on governments and on government finances. So I expect the Fed to cut over the course of the next 12 months and the South African Reserve Bank to do the same. But, consumers don't feel better off on day one after a rate cut. It takes time to feed through, and you're going to take that little bit of extra money that you're saving and probably pay off a little bit of debt, or you're not going to go and just start spending it aggressively. So even though we have a rate cutting cycle, don't expect the economy just to take off day one. But sensitive sectors like property, where you've got a lot of debt, and immediately that debt becomes cheaper, that's where you do have an immediate impact. But on retailers and other things like that, it's not going to be just immediate. So I think you can have some room for disappointment.
And then, of course, investors, we can't get ahead of ourselves, because there are these two key things on the side outside of economics which we have to be aware of. The one is the US election, and it's looking like that's a much more even race going forward.
That has changed in the last 6 weeks, month.
Yeah. And the other one is obviously the sort of tensions in the Middle East, which look to be ramping up. The number of missiles that were exchanged over the weekend is pretty key. So those are the swing factors on the side, aren't they?
Definitely. The US election, sure. How interesting is that? And, Trump is being his belligerent self at the moment, but I think it's also a sign that he's suddenly quite nervous that things might not go his way, which is great. I think from a healthy election point of view, and whatever the American people decide, they will decide. But I think it's not almost a foregone conclusion anymore, which makes it a bit more interesting. And yes, you are, Robin. These Middle East tensions refuse to go away. One half of me kind of feels that there's been a kind of reprisals, and the face has been saved, but we
haven't done nothing, but we're not going to war.
But it really is on a knife edge there, and I think the biggest risk for me, obviously there's also a lot of stuff happening in Ukraine as they kind of head into the autumn as well. But the biggest risk for me is that we do have a real conflagration in the Middle East, and that oil prices are suddenly at $90 or $95. That would upend inflation. That would upend the rate cycle overnight, and we would have to, everything would adjust after that. So that's probably the one major risk in the next sort of 2 months that we have to really be aware of.
Yeah. Awesome. Michael, it's always interesting to get insight on what's happening. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for joining us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.